Hello, and welcome to another edition of Choose to Challenge. I am LaWanna Bradford, and I am just so excited because this entire month we have devoted the entire platform of Choose to Challenge to mental health. And today is no different. And I'm so excited because I have a very special guest, the amazing Wendy Watkins of the Joy Factor, the person who you often hear me quote, living your delicious life. And we're going to get into what all that means. And I just want to bring Wendy on now. Wendy, how is it going?
Hi, LaWanna. Oh, it's going wonderful. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching.
So, Wendy, I want normally I like give the whole bio scope on our guests, but I want to just pause and kind of take it from a different plane. So, before we go into all of your amazing accolades, why is mental health so important to you?
Well, without good mental health, life would be a lot more challenging, is all I could say. So there's a little bit of selfishness, right, of my own personal journey and knowing how much more fulfilling and delicious my life is when my mental health is good. And also knowing that we're all connected, right? And so if that is true for me, it's true for others. I think my main mission around mental health, Awana, and is the whole traffic scenario, right? My big why of why I do what I do around mental health is so that more people let us merge into traffic. And right, if you think about that concept for yourself, when you're sitting in traffic and you're having a good day and you're feeling good, and that's what the benefit of mental health, one of the many benefits of good mental health, you'll let people merge in front of you. And on days that you may not be feeling so good, right, and so generous, that no one's going to get in front of you. Good mental health allows you to merge in life, allows us all to merge. So that is a big piece of it for me, and it's also important because it's something that has been there's been such a stigma around mental illness and people not wanting to talk about it for fear of being judged or typically not understood. And so it's important to me to also shift that conversation around mental illness and the benefit of having good mental health. I mean, one of the things I learned early on from one of my colleagues, Dr. Corey Keyes, was that just because you don't have a diagnosed mental illness doesn't mean that you have good mental health. And as a professional coach, that really resonated with me because the mental illness piece is great to work with your therapist or your counselor, but the having good mental health and creating a delicious life, that's my coaching passion, right? And so, yeah, I could probably go on a little bit more about my passion, but I'm going to pause there, Lawana, and
No, that's great because that leads into your accolades. So, it's amazing how our passion ends up driving our purpose,
Mm,
and our gifting starts to bubble to the surface. And you realize, as you said, through your own lived experience, that there's a different path, there's a better path. And so this concept of delicious life, you're embodying that not only in how you're living, but how you're showing up and serving others
mm,
and showing us the way and living what delicious means to us, right? Because we all have our own individual palettes, but it's defining what that is and reaching and grasping for it. And with that, you've become a coach, a teacher, a mentor. I mean, I feel that you are revolutionary in your approach and in your messaging around mental health, and it makes it the conversation approachable,
mm.
because you and I've talked about changing that narrative, right?
Yes,
Let's get
yes.
loud about mental health. Let's break the stigmas and the biases that are there, and to be comfortable in talking about it, just as we do about giving tips on physical fitness or diets, or it's so critical.
Yes.
And I'd like to just jump into your, as an author, you wrote a book called The Joy Factor: Tips to Living a Delicious Life. And that's kind of how I came up with the precursor to this title, Your Joy Factor Equals Mental Health. So
Yes.
tell us about this book, and I think it's entitled Recipes for a Delicious Life. And I
Yeah.
know you love food, you're a foodie.
So are
But it's
you.
also recipes for our life, right? Those
Yes.
those key ingredients that we need. So can we break that down a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Yeah, released the Joy Factor recipe book, A Common Sense Approach to a Delicious Life. It's a mouthful, LaWanna. It's, for sure. But in back in 2012, and I wrote this book from my heart, from my experience of what it took to stop looking for happiness outside of myself, because I did that for many years, and I have a feeling I'm not alone. I'm not saying that sometimes I find it outside of myself, but most of the time, I noticed that those things would go away that made me happy for that brief moment. And so went on a quest for sustainable joy. And from there, came up with this concept that our life is like a big cookbook. And each and every day, we get to choose a different recipe. And depending on the quality of the ingredients, right? If you're a foodie, you like to eat or cook a good ingredient, it makes a better meal. And so the ingredients that we weave into our daily recipe, that you weave into your recipe, impact the quality of your day. And in the book, I share 4 ingredients that I use and that my clients use to weave in with their own ingredients, right? Because we all have our own ingredients already. So we talk about passion, right? You're like LaWanna, that passion is the driver, right? And so many people are not even aware of what their passions are today because they change over time, right? So uncovering what they are and being able to weave them in. I talk about authentic expression. I think the common term these days is you be you, and what that really means. And in this ingredient, it's about uncovering what your values are, right? And using those as a decision-making tool so you have more joy, self-care, which is not just massages anymore. And so we talk a lot about boundaries and such like that. And then one of my favorite ingredients is strategic optimism. And it's one of those things that we can all, myself, all of us, have the opportunity to weave in to live life with more hope and confidence around that hope than worry and doubt. So
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, it's a fun book. It's got pictures in here. I have it right here. What I love about it, and LaWanna, so you probably do as well. It's like I have pictures of my dog in the book because that's all part of my recipe, right? So
Right.
it's a very interactive book, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about you mentioned, your ingredient number 2, and I think this is so important because we often get stressed and feel bouts of anxiety when we are trying to keep up with others, when we are misaligned, when our actions misalign with our true selves, with our values. And I think women, as we go through life, we start to question our worth, our value, especially as there's different chapters, right? So whether it's divorce or death or empty nest syndrome, whatever, we're looking toward retirement, suddenly we start to question. And I think the worst thing we can do is have that, I'm going to call it Pied Piper syndrome,
Mm,
where we, instead of being true to us and wedded to that truth, we look to what someone else is doing and we start going along our merry way, but then we realize that there's not a peace there. But we feel that that's where we should go because that person we admire most is going in that direction, right?
hmm. Been there, done that. Yeah, and then I sit there and go, "What am I doing here? Oh, wait, I made the choice to come here." The difference is that it wasn't a conscious choice, right? And that's what you're speaking to, right? We've all made choices and gone, "Well, why what am I doing here?" Because you followed, I would wanted to say yes to somebody, or I wanted to, keep up and be seen. Those things, maybe the ego showed up a little bit more, right? That was
Yes,
driving me. But yet, when you can come back and drop into um, your values and be able to ask yourself, right? Like when a decision comes up, and I'm conscious because I want to make a decision. It's conscious or unconscious choices that we make. Some of you are living your life by default, right? You just always do what you've always done. So when you choose to wake up and start making more conscious choices, you can then look at your values. And I have, your values as a compass. And you can ask yourself, is this decision going to move me closer to or farther away from honoring my values, from feeling good, right? Because values are the qualities, the principle. They're not morals. They're not shoulds. They're not what our parents want from us or what our
right,
friends want from us or what our spiritual leader wants from us. It is what brings us the most fulfillment. So when you could first notice, oh, well, no, it's not really in alignment with my values. I'm not saying I like for myself that I don't choose to do it, because sometimes I do, but it's conscious and I know what I'm getting myself into and what may come from that. So that's where I think if we all just aligned more with what's most important to us and trusted our greatness, right? Easier said than done.
yes.
And yes, but capable of doing it when you're living a values-based life, because then you're always coming from your heart and what works for you. If other people aren't happy with it, then that's their values or their decision to work with that. So, but the conscious choices is where the values play the biggest role, I believe, and being able to do something different and get the different results that you're yearning for, i.e., more joy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I know you and I had the opportunity to do, we spent almost 2 years doing it, thanks to the pandemic, was our show, our mental
Yes.
health show, which started on Facebook, then went to streaming TV, and
Yes.
it was Let's Get Loud About Mental Health. And I remember when I started the show as the facilitator, right? I said, okay, you guys are the experts. That's I don't have. Remember, I took that
Mhm.
position. I don't have those
Mhm.
issues. I'm good, but we can do the chitty chat because I get that people need this. So I was coming from preconceptions, biases that I didn't know I had, but it was coming up in the my words, right? And here
Yes.
I am facilitating this mental health panel, but without really knowing, like you said, we're not talking about mental illness, even though that is a conversation.
Absolutely.
But how do we maintain our health, our mental health?
Yes.
And I find it interesting, and I love your term, Gus, God, universe, and spirit. How Gus tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Okay, I'll show you. You're a little haughty, you're a little arrogant. Let's take you a few months down through the pandemic." And suddenly I realized, ooh, these tools they're telling me, I needed them to just maintain my balance and my sanity,
Mm.
right? Because in this pandemic, I think even those who have very strong wills and determination, how many people could say that they have ever experienced living life in isolation, right?
Right. Yes.
Not being able to touch other people because of fear. And it did a number on me. I mean, I had to sit and say, whoa, okay, now I get it. And I'd like you to just talk a little bit about that, because I know that are listening, there are a lot of people who were probably like me thinking, I'm good. But everyone has a breaking point. You just don't know what it is.
It's true.
And if you don't have the tools,
It's
you
true.
really can place yourself at risk, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, LaWanna. I never thought of you as arrogant, but I did envy the, oh yeah, this is not my issue. And I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And I know other people in their life that, they have good mental health and it's never been an issue, and good for you. I also know a lot of people that have deal with bad mental health that has now turned into mental illness. Right?
Mm,
So it's the same thing. If you don't treat it, it's just going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. So having the tools at hand are key. Um, I always think about how the tide goes in and the tide goes out, and the sun goes up and the sun goes down, and we're going to have good days and we're going to have bad days. Right? And
right.
so, and the biggest thing is, and I don't know if you experience this, LaWanna, but the biggest challenge is when we have bad days, what we do then is begin to beat ourselves up about that, right? To why am I having a bad day? So one of the things for all of us to remember from, what LaWanna's saying and from just nature, is that it's not if, it's when, and to be prepared, even if it's just an off day, because it's not a matter of, when I'm speaking about good mental health and your joy factor, it's really not about being woo woo happy all the time. It is about having a good vibration, and feeling good and real satisfaction in life.
Right.
But the key piece to good mental health is it increases your resilience. So when you do have that off day, you're going to bounce back faster. At least I do. When I have those tools, like, being able to, the biggest tool for me is as simple as just stepping outside and getting my
Yeah.
feet on the ground. That right there, just stopping, because it just stops anything that could be happening in the mind, right? Ruminating about the past or the future, and, whatever it is that takes us off path. It's having those tools and having them ready to go. It's kind of like a first aid kit,
Yes.
right? You
Yeah,
carry
that
that in
makes
your
sense.
car. You never know what's going to happen, but you're ready. So how ready are you if you were to have an episode of, and some of you probably have, right? You're saying, excuse me, anxiety, right? More people are experiencing anxiousness, especially about coming back out into the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that
Yes.
look like now? And because our brain works with, our brain wants to keep us safe and comfortable. So we're very safe and comfortable in our homes. And the idea, the excitement to go out is great. But then when it actually comes down to it, the brain is bringing us back. And so then there's this gap that equates to anxiety. And
Right.
so how do you calm yourself in a moment of that? How do you calm yourself, LaWanna? I'm curious.
Um, well, definitely, I love going for my walk. Like I said, my meditation, and prayer,
Yes.
and journaling. And I had an instance that happened today. We were having a meeting, and it was this team session, and I was getting very frustrated because this has been going on for about 3 weeks, and I've been carrying the lion's share. Other people are doing their work, but today I was just tired of hearing we the team. And I said, honestly, I don't see a we the team. I see LaWanna, hey, LaWanna can handle this, LaWanna can handle that. I said, I'm tired of hearing my name. I was just tired. But I realized if I had mentioned this when I first felt that, you know,
Mm.
pricking, if you will, it wouldn't have gotten to this just, quick outburst. And then I had to pull back. I said, my apologies. I'm not having a good day right now. But had I addressed it, I could have said, wait a minute, everyone. Can we look at how we're dividing this work? Maybe it's not equally distributed, but because I want to always ensure things get done,
Mm.
it's like, okay, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. And so there was, there's things with me that I realized, like you said, the boundaries. What are my boundaries when it's a work effort?
Yes.
You've got to communicate it, because how will people know? If you keep saying, yeah, bring it on, they're going to bring it on.
Yes. Yes. We definitely train people on how to treat us.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really good noticing, LaWanna. And what you said is so key, right? To be able to express it earlier before we
Yes.
explode. For some reason, it's like, I don't know what it is when people, like, I'm a New Yorker, right? So I'm like honest to a fault. And I guess the past 30 years, I've experienced that when people communicate authentically and honestly, they'll be talked about as being assertive or aggressive, right? Because they're asking for what they want. And I'm like, wait a minute. We've lived long enough not asking for what we want and then having to clean up the mess that comes from that. How about asking for what we want in the beginning to reduce the messes and actually have more joy, and so people could stay in their lane and do what they're really good at? Because LaWanna, I'm sure you weren't just sitting in your A skill set. You were probably doing things that someone else definitely should have been doing.
Right. They could have done it better.
Right. Right. So
Yes.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are little but important tips to have in your toolbox, right? It's being self-aware, communicating, being honest, as you said, setting those boundaries.
The other thing that bears bringing up right now that's so important is paying attention to what you're reading and listening to, and using those to add to your delicious life rather than detract from your delicious life. Because we all know, you know this, listening to the news is just going to rob you of your joy factor. I'm not saying you shouldn't keep up on current events. Absolutely. Check your smartphone, get the facts, and then move on. And put your attention on reading things and listening to things that lift you up, right? Because we're
Right.
so affected by all of that. And that is another thing we have conscious choice of.
Yeah,
You,
and
I'm going to
your
say this.
example of the news, Wendy, I remember talking to my parents about midway into the pandemic, and I would come home and it's like CNN was on almost 24/7. I said, "Mom, what are you doing? You weren't glued to the TV before." "Oh, well, we don't know. What are they going to do? What are It will suck you in."
Yes. Yes, it will. And, I think I have a client that it was so impactful when he uncovered, he was languishing in his life, and we did a little inventory of his day. And when he realized that he began and ended his day with watching the news, and so when he
Mm,
thought about everything in between there, and he just made two simple shifts. One was he was single, so he liked having something on, which is another thing, right? So you put it on. Hey, I put the Today Show on, which is mostly great, but then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to see that. And so but he started listening to in the mornings like TED Talks and inspirational talks. So that got him going. And there was noise in the background because he never really watched. It was just, and then he goes to sleep watching like Seinfeld or some silly comedy. So he's going to bed laughing. Just think about, for you listening, what is your beginning and end of day ritual, right? What do you do to set yourself up to feel good? Because you have that opportunity. That's a conscious choice. Unless someone's coming in and sets your TV to CNN and sticks it there. I don't think that's happening.
no, no. I want to just put this disclaimer that this show is for infotainment purposes only, not intended to diagnose or treat any mental health concerns. We do ask, if you have any questions, concerns about your mental health or that of a loved one, please contact NAMI.org or the Suicide Prevention Hotline 800-273-8355. 800-273-8355. Speaking of suicide prevention,
Mm,
I know every year you are involved in creating awareness about um, suicide prevention. And with what's been happening in the pandemic, we know that suicides are at an all time high, especially with our youth. Um, Seniors living alone, I was surprised at some of those numbers that are
yes,
coming in. What do
yes.
you have to tell the audience about maybe indicators of what I'm gonna try to think of how to word this, because just because someone is having a bad day doesn't mean they're suicidal. But
Right.
are there, just in your training, signs to tell us that maybe someone is having some concerns? And we know recently on the news there have been celebrities who've taken their lives. So there's a lot of attention right now going on with that. What would you like to say?
Well, my stomach just sank because I haven't watched the news, so I don't know what you're talking about. Um, and so, suicide is one of those, another epidemic that there's so much stigma around, right? Of someone deciding to take their life. And there's so many factors that come into why someone may choose to take their life, right? And of course, we're experiencing so many of them right now. It's about, environment. It's about health and past situations, and then it's about the current of what is happening in the world, right? So it's never just one thing. It's typically a combination of things that are happening that we don't see. But some of the signs that you can look for is that, your friend or yourself, right? That if you or your friends, I'm just going to speak about it as your friends, are like they're different. You haven't heard from them. They haven't called. You're not seeing them on social media. They're not showing up to what they typically are. That's a sign that they may be going through some distress, and it's very important to reach out. Especially important to reach out to your friends that are the gregarious, fun-loving, outgoing, that you think they're okay, because they may not be, right? And that's something I could speak about as myself personally, because I am one of those people that everyone thinks I'm okay because I'm always checking in on them. And, sometimes it's real lonely. And that loneliness is what you're speaking to with the seniors. They're super lonely, and they see no hope. And so when you do come across a friend or someone that you are curious about, and there could be other signs. They're partying way more than usual, or they stopped partying with you. Um, uh, their weight may fluctuate. They may actually say, in jest, I just don't want to deal with this life anymore. Right? Never take anything in jest. And the challenging thing here, Luana, is that it's super uncomfortable to go, are you serious? Right? Who
Mhm.
wants to go? Wait, I noticed that you're going through a hard time, right? I hear your discomfort. Are you thinking, can I ask you a question? Like, are you thinking of taking your life? Like, that is a question we have to become comfortable asking people that we're concerned about. Um, and what I have found is that when you're more comfortable asking that, most of the time they're going to say no. But if they do say yes, then it's just a matter of getting curious with them, and doing your best to keep them separated from whatever means you think they may have. And if you're not sure, that's when you call the suicide prevention hotline, the number that's coming up across now. This is not just for people that are thinking about taking their life. The suicide prevention hotline is for people that are need answers now, and they will be there for you. So um, I wish it was a straight answer, LaWanna. It really isn't. But it's paying attention to a difference, just like when you notice a little mole, you're like, oh,
Right.
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 Oh,
Let,
wow.
let me go check that out. Right.
Let me go check that out. It's getting bigger. Instead of what a lot of people do is show, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And that's what happens a lot. Ooh, have you talked to Wendy? No, I haven't talked to her. Wow, I'm really worried about her. And a bunch of friends will talk about, but never reach out to Wendy and say,
Right.
Wendy, we're concerned about you. How you doing? Do you think a friend is actually going to get mad if you ask them, we're concerned about you, how you're doing? Your behavior has me concerned that you may harm yourself. Have you thought about that? No one's going to say, they may get upset, but you're not in charge of their reaction. If you're coming from your heart and you really care. So I can go on and on about this, and I do. I teach a class called Talk Saves Lives. That's sponsored by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I'm actually doing a talk on Wednesday at 3:30 Pacific. And LaWanna, I can get you that information if we want to pop it up there.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I love everything that you're doing, and I know when you and I were talking a couple years ago, when you were kind of exploring, it's like, what do I want to do? You were very clear on what you did not want to do, and you knew where your heart was tugging. But it's like, well, how does all of this morph into whatever Gus is calling me to do? And Gus, again, God, universe, and spirit. For those of you who are wondering, who's Gus?
Thank you,
But
Angie Ponda Reed. She created GUS for us.
yes,
Love that acronym.
and so you're teaching. I love your happiness camp. You and I've talked about that, and now you have a new YouTube channel called Making Stuff Up. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How people can tune into it, and how does that all tie into mental health?
Well, I see that pretty clearly, right? I think my concept, and maybe yours as well, is that everything is made up, right? We make everything up. So why not make up the good stuff? We create our thoughts, right? No one is coming in and dropping them in. Now, we may be affected by external sources, but when it comes down to it, the only thing we have control over, the only thing is our thoughts. So why not make up good stuff? So on the Making Stuff Up show with Wendy, I bring in other guests that talk about how they're using their MSU. So you all have an MSU right now, right? Because now you all know you make stuff up. And they share how they use their MSU to improve their mental health and success in their business and professional life. So it's an interview show. We have real conversation, and LaWanna was a guest, and I'm definitely going to see her episode. We had so much fun making stuff up and making goat cheese trios together. So I've tried a different variety of interviews on the channel, but if you go to youtube.com/making stuff up show, you will find us there, and would love to have you be a subscriber and help support you in making up the good stuff.
Sounds good. Well, Wendy, I cannot believe we're almost out of time. And I want to show this one little video, and then I would like to give you some time, if you don't mind, to share any lasting words with the audience. Is that okay?
Thank you. Yes.
All right.
I love that video. Oh my gosh. LaWanna, that woman puts together the most amazing things. Oh, she's not here right now, so I could talk about her. So, this woman is the driver of so many women's success and joy. And so LaWanna Bradford is a woman that has learned how to tap into her joy factor and is out there helping others grow, which helps her grow. That's such a good piece about mental health as well, is being able to, when you're having a not so good day, to put your attention on somebody else. Right? Because when we get in our head, like I can speak for myself, I believe that our mind is like a dangerous neighborhood and it's not safe to visit there by yourself. So if you find yourself going in there and ruminating, worrying, then take a breath. There's 3 parts of this. Take a breath, think of something you're grateful for, and then call a friend and say something nice to them. Or go sweep your neighbor's porch. Or go take a walk and smile at people. Do something good for you that also impacts others. But it's about you keeping your fountain full, so to say. When you feel good, you could help others feel good. Okay, and LaWanna has a way of doing that. So I'm not sure if she's coming back or not. I could keep going on and on and on. There she is, LaWanna. Everybody, welcome LaWanna Bradford.
Oh my goodness, this has been so great, Wendy. Thank you for all that you're doing for mental health. Thank you for educating me so that now in my own little lane, I continue to just raise the banner of awareness. And I find myself in partaking in more conversations because, like you said, you never know where people are.
Yeah.
And if I am about changing the narrative about all the biases that are out there, and mental health is no different, then to change it, I have to be part of the change. And so I thank you and the other ladies that have been part of our community in helping to educate me and giving me the tools for my own mental health.
Yes.
But to be a resource for others and to be able to point them to experts and coaches such as yourself for that support. And I so love making stuff up. So everyone, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Making Stuff Up with Wendy Watkins. You're going to love it. It's just such an enjoyable and refreshing way to talk about a kind of difficult conversation, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, definitely give you tools for sure.
Yes, yes.
LaWanna, I'm dropping in the chat too. If you want to share, this is the link for Wednesday's presentation on the Talk Saves Lives.
Okay, let me put that up here.
And that is basically a 60-minute presentation that gives the science, the facts, and how to have a conversation with someone if you see the signs that we share with you.
So it's this Wednesday?
Yep, this Wednesday, the 25th. It's wrapping up Mental Health Awareness Month here, and
what time?
It is at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern.
Yeah. Oops. Why did that not? Didn't pick up.
Okay.
Give it. Can you spell it out for me?
Yes. That HTTPS /2/25 May 25 May TSL attendease.com. Attendease, EASE.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect.
And I will also put it in the. We have a community for those of you that don't know. I know we're streaming on E360 TV, but there's a community on Facebook called Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness, and I'll make sure that I promote it there as well. And if you want to be a part of a community of women that are all about uplifting and inspiring women to be the best versions of themselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially, come on over. Be a part of Celebrate You and get to know amazing people like Wendy even more. You can follow Wendy on all things social media at wendywatkins.com. Get her book, Joy Factor, on Amazon. Again, making stuff up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It will not disappoint, I promise you. So, with that, Wendy, thank you
LaWanna,
so very much for joining me.
thank you for having me, really, and thank you all for listening. You are loved, and remember that as you go through life. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And just remember, everyone, that mental health does matter. You are not alone. And if you feel that you need to reach out, there are resources around you, friends. The community wants to see you survive. The community of humanity wants to see you thrive. Until next time, be safe, everyone. Blessings.